You've built expertise in one area, but AI is reshaping everything. Do you pivot and risk starting over? Do you try to bolt AI onto what you're already doing? Or do you watch from the sidelines while the opportunity passes? Hello, I'm Paul, and welcome to episode 671 of my podcast. In this episode, I talked to Angie Carel from Co-Crafted. You will learn from Angie lots, but in particular, how she shut down her 18-year marketing agency in 60 days and rebuilt an AI consultancy and training, now on track to outpace her old agency revenue in 1 year. Her systematic approach to learning AI through play, testing two new tools weekly from a database of 162 that she's personally evaluated, and how she automated her entire workflow using Make an AI assistants, scaling from 3 trainings per week to 15. Angie was named one of the top 50 women to watch an AI and founded Indiana's largest AI community with 700 members. She helps corporations adopt AI with a people first approach and now coaches emerging AI consultants. Over to Angie Carel from angiecarel.com. Great to have you here, Angie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we were just talking about your background versus mine. So if you're watching this on YouTube, yes,
Uh,
Angie's got a brilliant background, and it is real. When you
It
see
is
a
real.
move, it is 100% real.
Yeah, half
Um,
of my hair isn't disappearing when I move. So,
correct, correct. So I love to start with, in your words, who do you love to work with?
as far as clients, I've worked, in AI for the last 3 years, and so my favorite client are those that are excited about AI and not still resistant or concerned as much as the others. I like to work with the people that really see the potential in AI. And I generally work with larger corporations right now because they see the value, they've got a barge to move, and they need help moving it. And so I jump in with them.
Right. And what is that barge? Like, what's the key problems that you help them solve?
Oh gosh, there's a lot. I mean, AI isn't just something that impacts one job or one task or one industry, one department even. So corporations are having to understand how it folds into every position. And that's from the product side and the service side as well. So it's just massive.
Yeah. And do you suggest the best place to start, or are you led by the client, or is it a bit of both? How's it sort of playing out
And
for you?
where I am right now is that most companies that I work with understand the value, but they don't understand where to start.
Mhm.
Or they've started dabbling. The tech teams maybe have built some really cool solutions, and then the executives are saying, "But where's the ROI?" Because they're deploying solutions and the people on the ground are just don't understand how to use them. There's just a big gap between what people understand and how people understand how to apply it. So I generally start with the companies by taking the entire company and doing foundations of AI training. I'm just wrapping up big one right now, 600 people in the company, and I taught every one of them just here is what generative AI is, why it's really important to understand right now, how it works so they can remove that barrier of fear. And then once we have the foundation built, I go into the use cases and applied AI use.
Great. And around the training, are you training across multiple LLMs? Are you training predominantly on the ones that their infrastructure is used to? How do you sort of make that call?
So if you back up to where I start, it doesn't matter what LLM they're using, it doesn't matter what tool they're using, it doesn't even matter what department they're in because the foundation level of AI, it's translatable across everything. So generally that is, here's how prediction and probability work, here's how you get your results, here's why prompting is important because if you don't know how to prompt, you can't control the AI. It's all of that. However, once we get past that, then I have to work within whatever the company has adopted and is deploying. So it's across the board, it depends on the size of the company, how high stakes the work that they do is, and a lot of different other variables.
Yeah, yeah. And as far as, their data, because obviously the larger the company, generally the more firewalls around their
Yeah.
data. Where do you sort of talk to that in the process? Is that at the foundation level, or is that more specific as you get into the actual use cases of how do you use it?
And I think most companies, that's really leading the conversations. That's not my area of expertise. I have a consultant that works in conjunction with me that leads those conversations. However, what happens is there are thousands of use cases, even I work with financial, very high stakes companies, medical, the ones that the data records are like, this cannot get out. There's a parallel conversation that happens. We need to talk about those use cases that are critical, like high stakes is no way they can get. But then, outside of that, there is an entire world of use cases that never touches anything related to safety
Yeah,
or privacy. So while they have some time to figure out their data, we don't even touch those projects in the beginning.
yeah.
I start right away implementing those AI use cases that don't come near any areas that they could have a lot of problems.
Yeah, and you're out there all the time. You're training people. People's awareness of the use of AI, like are most people using it in their private lives, and therefore, this is like no new use to them, or are you finding it? Tell me a little bit about that.
No, I mean, it's shocking to me how little people are using AI already. In fact, one of the things I encourage people to do, especially the executives, but other people in companies, use it in your private life
Yes.
because they are now, but most people think AI and they relate it to work. And so, I mean, there's exceptions. There's these people that are running with it, doing all sorts of cool things, but like they think AI technology, it's related to work, and I have to figure out first how to apply it to work, and then I'll play around with it. But the fact is that if you start there with your work use cases, suddenly you've just given yourself a teeny tiny little box to play with AI. I've got to find it, I've got to be productive, I've got to find it for this use case, it has to make sense, it has to be billable or whatever. But when you use it in your personal life, you can just use it for whatever you can think of.
Yes.
And so the fastest way to learn AI is by not putting so much pressure on yourself to do it at work. And just like everything you think of, like, okay, I'm going to take a picture of my fridge and find out what I should eat for dinner. Like, those are the ways that you follow your curiosity. It's fun, it's joyful, and that's the way you learn because they relate. Like those fun, silly, playful use cases, you can relate what you learn in those cases to what you do at work. It might not all make sense at first, but eventually it will. And that will be
Absolutely.
helpful.
Absolutely. And it's like building that muscle, right? Like you've got to build that
Yes.
muscle. So, I used to be a keen cyclist and like, it was all about building that muscle strength for when you really needed it. And, I think it's the same. And it's a great analogy. And like for me, for example, planning a European trip last night and it got to this, like I use it all the time. So I'm very good at it. But yesterday, one specific use case was I'm catching a train from Innsbruck to Bolzano in Italy and also Vienna and Innsbruck. And I wanted to know what's the best side to book
Yeah.
my tickets for to see the
Oh,
best scenery, right?
that's brilliant.
So I took a snapshot, put the carriage in and said, so what's the best side? And then on it, it had facing forward. So it even picked up, well, you want the two forward facing seats on this side, book those. Like that's how granular you can get. And my son's
Mhm.
like, oh, how do you trust that data? I'm like, well, it's better than what I was going to
I was
suggest.
gonna say, what are you gonna do otherwise? Just guess.
Correct. But yeah, there's so many, and this afternoon, tomorrow we're doing a renovation. So what I'm going to do this afternoon is go down and take all the photos of the rooms, and then basically use it to come up with a plan that I can give the draftsman to say, here's a better indication of what we want. And my wife's got to relay what we both want to the draftsman. I won't be there.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of prepping that. So yes, it's endless, right? It's like to
Hmm.
me, if I think there's not many things I don't do without my phone. exact same thing. AI's first. So, you were, had a very successful agency, marketing agency back in 2022, and you thought, actually, you know what? I'm going to pivot into this new shiny thing called AI. Take us a little bit about what was your thinking at the time and why
Uh,
you made that choice.
This is the right place at the right time sort of story. But and I had my marketing agency for 18 years. So I have been an entrepreneur, business owner my whole life, basically. And so I already had planned to leave the agency, sort of shut the doors, and then circle back to the clients to do independent consulting. My employees had taken jobs. This was all in the works, especially after COVID.
Yeah.
After the COVID shutdown and all that chaos, it was like, I love my employees. They were the best, but I've built this band and I'm ready to go solo. That's what I said.
Yeah.
So when I started having those conversations, AI was emerging into the mainstream, but we were already using AI for a lot of our tools, blog writing, all of the text writing tools were available long before ChatGPT was launched. But because we were that kind of agency already, when ChatGPT launched, I happened to be in this is when I'm rethinking things phase. Used it one time and said, that just did what 6 employees could do in 4 months in 4 minutes. I am not moving forward in consulting and marketing unless it's with an AI first lens.
Yes.
And so the very first clients that I took after I shut down the agency, which by the way, I did in 60 days, proud, I ripped off the band-aid, pulled the lever, and it was a really great transition. But first clients that I took in that new space when I was just like, I'm figuring this out with you, and I hope you trust me to do it because I'm only 2 steps ahead. I took with an AI first approach that was really successful. And then the marketing teams, were happy, excited, seeing success. Well, that filtered into the other teams saying, well, what what about us? What's happening? So I just slowly became more of a broad scope AI adoption consultant by default because there was zero other people here doing this. I could help. I'm a fast learner. I'm incredibly creative, and that's really important with learning AI and leading it. And so I saw the potential immediately. I was positioned to jump onto the wave and ride it to shore. And I'm a marketer.
Yes.
So I was like, I'm doing this. But I
Yeah.
mean, I've worked my tail off, you know, in this phase, but I've enjoyed it
Great.
tremendously. But I
And
was I was just positioned there.
yeah, fantastic. And I think we'll all look back and say, we were part of it. Like, certainly for me, around that 95 when the web came, it's
Yeah,
like, if
yeah,
you're like you are a creative and early adopter, I think these trends are great, but this wave is by far the highest I've ever surfed, which is
yeah.
fantastic. And your mix of what you deliver. So, you talked about consultancy, you talked about training. What's sort of the mix at the moment of between the two?
Right now, I have an AI enablement program, which is basically a structured corporate adoption strategy with the priority in literacy, like teaching AI. I do speaking. I have become a speaker. That was not on my bingo card. And it's different but the same. I do AI advisory. So I step into the role with at a really high level helping to guide people. So
Yeah.
the enablement programs are really with the teams in
Yes.
the corporations
Yes.
and the advisory is with the leaders.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And for you, as far as the delivery of training, what has changed in the last 3 years in the way that you deliver the training versus, what you might have done when you first started?
That's a really, really good question because that has been one of the things that I have changed the most. When I started doing adoption consulting, it was just like, let's go. We can do this use case and this use case and pilot this program. And it was just, let's go. And then I sort of started seeing some clients that needed to backpedal and needed to start like, okay, we've got a people problem. It's not just about the tech. The people need cultural shift, cultural change. They need leadership. They need taught the fundamentals. And so I shifted from doing like, let's move forward with applied AI to really prioritizing people in
Yes.
culture and making sure that they feel comfortable and taken care of, safe with their leadership and help even helping companies understand how do you communicate this? Because if you say, here, I'm bringing in this consultant and she's here to teach you AI, well, sometimes the people are like, why? So you can get rid of me, so you can get rid of my job. It
Yes.
is helping people understand that this is an opportunity to learn that your company is giving you. Take advantage of it because it doesn't matter if you stay here or go somewhere else. You will need this knowledge anywhere you go in the future. And so, really, the biggest shift was like keeping myself from moving forward with these really fun, cool things to do and forcing the companies that I work with to really focus on the people first and then the literacy and enablement second.
Yeah, yeah. And what, you've mentioned some of those fears that people have. Is there any other specific ones that you've seen? The obvious one is, it's going to
Oh,
replace my job. What are some other fears that you've seen as people go through this change?
it's not just fear. I mean, I think fear of the unknown and fear of change are just basic human nature. Like
Yes.
this is the biggest technological revolution we've ever been through. It's fast. There's a lot of unknowns. And so, but people have valid concerns like our environmental impact.
Yes.
The
Yes.
deep fake videos that they are not required in the United States, they're not required to be transparent about if it's AI or if it's not. The impact of the way we learn, the impact on our kids, and them being brought up AI native. Like the concerns are vast
Mm.
and valid.
Yes.
And I think that companies and people, we as human beings, we need to just receive those and validate everyone's concern because until they're validated, you cannot move on. You can't start learning. You can't have fun. You can't like use it for the really great things. We don't have any regulations here. Like it's just like move forward at all costs. Most people misperceive me as someone that wants that, but I want regulations. I want rules. I want barriers around what people are allowed to do. And so I'm navigating a lot of different, concerns, which are all very valid.
Yeah, like I just personally, I find it very difficult to, now when I'll go onto Facebook to see whose birthday it is, and that's my standard morning practice. And you see so much content that you're like, I don't know if this is true or not anymore. It's like so
Hmm.
hard to try to decipher, well, what is real and what's not. You talked about, the people, that's the most important thing with going through the change. The technology, it's rapidly changing as well, right? But generally, the technology is the technology. You talk about play and, how you help people learn through play. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was the little girl that was like, but why? How does that work? I was that girl. And I find that now in my life, I'm in my mid to late 40s. This is the first time I've ever been able to circle back around to that sense of wonder and that creative questioning and can it be built? Can it be done? And I think we all need to tap into that. So it's in us as adults. We've just been told, no, you can't. You have to be productive. Because when I started learning AI, nobody was telling me how to learn it. I was in the very beginning. There weren't very many people leading the charge. It was just this playground for me to have so much fun with. And I spent 2 days, I blocked 2 days per week for me, try a new tool, have this idea, try this with that tool, wonder if it does this, I wonder if it does that. All the free trials I could possibly consume, I consumed. And I learned that, that's the fastest way to learning is just allowing yourself as an adult, even as an executive adult, just to say, It doesn't matter what the outcome is. I'm just going to try it. And
Yes.
and we have a hard time with that. We have a hard time letting ourselves play. I call it play with corporations. I call it corporate recess. Let them have 2 hours once a month or 30 minutes a day to allow themselves to just play around. And that's their rule. Just play around with this.
Yeah.
And I think it's when people start to have fun with it, you know. It doesn't need to be training time. If it's framed as training, no, no fun. We don't want
Yeah.
to sit in another training. It
Yeah.
just needs to be like playtime.
Yeah, I remember back in my corporate Coke days where we used to have a breakfast club, and it was basically back then we were learning, digital transformation, but it was,
Yeah.
it was predominantly around websites, etc. But we'd do it as a breakfast. There was like, it didn't matter your rank or whatever, you just come and one person would, we'd alternate running it, and it was just a fun way of learning the new things. So I think, some of those things that, based on your learning style and how you learn, apply that to something that is new. Because ultimately, I think, AI is brilliant and it's rapid change, but it doesn't change who the business is and it doesn't really change who you are. So like if you're selling, you pick anything. For me, we used to sell soft drink. If you're selling soft drink, you're still selling soft drink, right? Like the
Hmm.
fundamentals of who the business is won't change. It just expedites. It's the same for you as a person. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but you do mention these, tools, and I know, you've got like 87 of them that you've played with, or something like that. Which in Australia we call that the devil's number, because in cricket it's 13 before 100, so it's always the number you don't want to be on. But
Well, there's only 87 there because the database of 162 have not all been entered.
there
I
you
have,
go.
I better
It-
get that 88th one up today.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I play with. I have a system in which every single week I pick two tools based on. I have AI assistants that are constantly in the background pulling the new tools from emails I receive and announcements that are made. So
yes.
new capabilities, I get a Slack message that says this was released, this is what it's said to do. And so I take those and I have the collection, my database, and then from that database, based on my interests or what I'm working on, I will pull two tools every week. They go to the home screen on my or the second screen on my phone, so I don't forget about them.
Yes.
Even if it's a web browser, I put that link on my screen on my phone, and then those become the two tools that I test and just play around with for the week. And so I'm constantly testing new tools and new capabilities
And,
as a
and if
cycle.
And if you look at your own, yeah, the way that you use tools for your own business, we've got the core ones. So let's talk about those at the moment. So what are your sort of core LLMs that you use, and in what way do you sort of use them?
Oof, that's a loaded question. I use all of the large language models, the foundation models. I have every one of them. My favorite use of those right now is building AI assistants on those platforms. So I build custom GPTs on ChatGPT and gems on Google Gemini and projects on Claude. All of those are my AI assistants, but use is different per platform. I use ChatGPT as my sort of go-to do this quickly. I don't want to think about my prompt. This is a quick ask. Then Gemini, I always have a well-structured prompt, or I use Gemini to structure my prompt correctly. But for market research, if I do a speaking engagement, my assistant has all of the details, the scope of the project or the inquiry, and that immediately goes to Gemini Deep Research,
Yes.
and it researches the company, it researches the if it's a annual event, the conference, and then it delivers back to me, here's what they pay speakers. Here's what speakers generally talk about. Here's how that relates to other speakers in the AI. And like that research component with Google is incredible.
Yes.
And then with Claude, with Anthropic, Claude is it's probably my favorite right now. It's my baby, my lovely. It for coding, no code app building for coaching.
Yeah.
my time management, my time manager, my co-CEO strategy partner. That's Anthropic Claude for me. I love it. And I love coding with Claude Code.
Yeah, yeah. Look, very similar. The only thing is, I must admit, I've stopped using ChatGPT. I've just fallen out of love with it. Part of it, I think, is a bit of Sam and the way
Yeah.
that Sam's leading the company versus the Anthropic values. I think a bit of that is my decision making, but also I just don't find that it. Yeah, Claude is my go-to, but I do all the crunching and the heavy lifting in Gemini like you do. And the one thing that Claude that frustrates me is, like even the other day, it just doesn't tell you when your token limits are up and it doesn't explain why.
And then
And
you're just like, oh, yes.
yeah,
That's why
like
you
I'm
have to just
stuck
keep
here. Like,
upgrading your account.
yeah. So I constantly, what I basically do is black pen with Gemini and then red pen with
Yeah.
Claude. So that's what I'm
Interesting.
constantly doing. But yeah, and
The
your word assistance to me is that like you said in Claude, it's like a project. So you've got a specific project that does a task. It's not a complete independent assistant. You're still the one that's prompting it. If I got that right.
the assistants that I've built, that when I refer to something as an assistant, it's something that I have thought through the instructions
Yes.
to provide. It's essentially a very comprehensive, detailed prompt that's in
Yes.
the back end of those platforms. It has the full capabilities of Anthropic Claude. They call their assistants projects, but the projects have my set of instructions and it will not go outside of those instructions. And then you can attach knowledge files. So if you're, a chef that only cooks, a certain amount of recipes, then you can have those recipes attached to the project and say, how do I alter this for 12 people? That's a bad example because you could do that anyway. But the assistants do one or two things
Yes.
really, really well, very consistently, and they can have knowledge attached and they can make outside calls to other tools and perform actions.
Yeah.
But alternately, agents, which are assistants that are working autonomously,
Yes.
they don't need the human to trigger their action. They are trained and learning from that training data, and then they are able to make decisions on your behalf without you jumping in as the human in the loop.
Yeah, we might have to get you back to talk in more detail, but have you started to play with Coworker from Claude?
Oh, coworker.
Yeah.
No, I haven't. I am literally stuck on Claude Code. I can't get my brain to pivot from outside of this. The capabilities are insane, but I do have coworker on my list of things to try out.
Yeah,
Have you?
just investigate. I've got one of my team members investigating it, but from the feedback that I've had, that it's excellent. And I think
Uh,
because one of the biggest things for me still is I've got some core systems that just don't play nicely with LLMs. So the data, I'm copying and pasting too much, and I believe that Coworker and also Google's version of it will reduce that friction of copying things so it becomes a little more autonomous than what it is at the moment. But
yeah. Do you use automation tools then in your systems?
yeah, so we use N8N is our predominant one that we use, and looking into Relay because a lot of a group that I'm in, they're using Relay, so we're looking at that as well. What
Okay.
about for you?
I have Relay. I like it a lot. It's very simple and quick. Like
Yeah.
you can make automations like with a snap of a thumb. But I lean into make for most of my AI. So I could show a workflow, like my entire product or service onboarding workflow. It has, I'm a visual person, so I built it out and it has every single detailed step that I take, like copying and pasting text. And basically, what I did when I was starting was I built it in Miro, which is just a
Yes.
visual board. And I took every single step. What's slowing me down? What could I do faster? And then I figured out basically how to build an assistant or automate that process. And so my entire workflow doesn't really have any like point bottlenecks anymore. I get an inquiry and it goes and then it has a human in the loop in my visual board, it's animated picture of me, illustrated picture of me with a big red like circle around it. Stop here. I review things and then they move forward. And then stop here, review all the way through. So if I book a speaking engagement, from the time someone inquires about that speaking engagement to the time I'm sending that final thank you note, everything that can be automated or assisted by an AI assistant is. And
Yeah.
it's remarkable to have, but I mean, it took me a deep understanding of my processes,
Yes.
rethinking my processes, and then visually like building it out so that I could see literally where the bottlenecks were.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think personally, my biggest thing is that I love to change things. So it's about being consistent in some things so that
Yeah.
you don't constantly, because some of my team have pushed back and said, Paul, if we automate this, I know that in 3 weeks' time you're going to improve it. So we're going to have to constantly change it. So
The automations are just the gears, though. They're not the actual content. The assistants
correct.
do generate the content, but so like I am the one that comes up with the content for my keynote speeches, but then my assistant kicks in to polish it or to give me better hooks or whatnot. So in my systems, those things that I because when you automate your whole process, you're suddenly free. I used to do 3 trainings a week. That was my max capacity. I did 15 in 1 week in November.
Wow.
And that's because but I created the content for my trainings
Yes.
because I'm free to do that because all of those other terms and conditions, contracts, follow-ups, all of those are automated. And so that's the beauty of AI is that it can take those tasks that you don't want to be doing anyway and then suddenly free you up to be so much more available for what you love to do and what you want to change all the time. Like those types of things.
Absolutely. And I think, all of us that running services businesses, if you're listening to Angie, episode 671, you're probably running a service business, and the biggest cost in a service business is labor, right? So, yes, if the labor can be better utilized for the things that LLMs can't do, but that allows you to get more revenue, like you just described. It's perfect. And I also think that it's a brilliant opportunity if you are sitting in a job thinking, gee, I'd love to go run my own business. Like it's never been easier. Someone today said, like I wish I could afford, for someone to do my marketing, my sales. I said, well, hey, you can get a fantastic assistant for 1,500 US a month plus AI. 2 years ago, what did it cost you to get that revenue versus what it is today? It's incredibly less. So it's brilliant. Well, look, we could talk forever, but I do want to be respectful of you, the listener, and your time. So what we're going to do is pause and thank our sponsors, and then we'll come back with a rapid fire. Quick break. If you're getting value from these stories, join my newsletter. Every week I share what's working with tech consultants escaping the project grind. Who to target, what business models work best, real client transformations. No fluff, just the pattern I've seen work over 200 times. Join at paulhigginsmentoring.com newsletter. Now back to the podcast. Okay, Angie, ready for the rapid fire?
Okay,
Four
I'm ready.
questions, rapid responses. So I know we've spoken about AI tools, but is there any one specific tool that out of your 162 and growing that you would recommend based on what you're using at the moment?
I would say, there's the tools that are like the foundation of what you use all the time.
Yes.
And then there's the fun tools and the tools you like to play with. I will say that my favorite tool probably right now is Lovable.
Yeah.
I really enjoy using it on my entire website from the very first idea to the launch, you don't see it on the front end, but the back end has a very complex admin section on the back end. That's where I add all my tech stack. Every single line of that code was built in Lovable, and every section has its own chat bot that's only trained on those sections, and it's a really, really fun tool to play with. But I love Midjourney and making animations and Illustrator or photo generations there. I love running videos through Runway. It's such a fun tool to create with. And it's hard for me to pick one.
Okay, brilliant. The
Can you
next,
tell?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The next one is, for you, what's your best go-to-market strategy that's working at the moment?
Oh gosh, listen, my go-to-market strategy, that might sound super silly and simple, but where are the problems? Where are the holes that people have? How do you solve those problems? And so that's what I've done for the last couple years. And then, being available with the solution and as a human, relatable, that's it. This is going to sound really, I don't know, braggy. As a marketer for 18 years, I do zero marketing for myself. The need is enormous. You
Yes,
you need to work on your alignment with your projects and not go for everything. You need to figure out exactly who you serve, what brings you joy, what you can be successful with, because there was a while that I was like, "Oh, I cannot work with, no matter what they paid me, they're not going to be happy at the end of this because they
yes,
want the moon and the stars and I can't give them that."
yes.
So it's really an introspective journey for me, and I don't have a structured go-to-market strategy, which I should hit myself for even saying that.
No, but you are speaking, you are an authority. So I think, you
Yeah.
are leading by your own personal brand, I think is probably
Yes.
looking from the
That
outside
that
in.
wasn't my goal. That wasn't my goal, but
Yeah.
I'm running with it because I see the opportunity and I enjoy it.
Yeah, great. And, we've talked about all of this knowledge that you've accumulated since 2022 on AI. Where do you go to learn? Like, what's your best?
Oh, I love the marketing AI show, or that's not the marketing AI show anymore. Paul Reitzer and Mike Kaput's podcast,
Yep.
the AI show, I think is what it's called, is just keeps me up to date on everything that's happened that last week in an hour's period of time. I love that. They're so relatable. So I guess to answer your question, without giving a slew of podcasts,
Yeah.
I listen to other people that are leading in the space.
Yep.
I feel that this is a what I call the near peer learning. It's you find the people that are adjacent to you and you're learning and figure out what they know that you don't know. And
Yeah.
then just absorb it, listen to it, be willing to understand that you don't know everything. So, podcast, I'm in a Harvard course right now, and that's just to learn more about the technical side of things. There's tons of online courses that you can take, and OpenAI has an academy where Google has their own courses. Anthropic has learning, so just online learning. But
Yeah.
my main source of learning is podcasts.
Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant. And last but not least, since 2002, what do you know now that you wish you had known when you first started on this AI journey?
What do I know now that I wish I would have known? I think what I know now is that nothing moves forward without a priority on the people that
Mm.
are moving it forward. And if you think about this, like if we don't focus on the people and giving them jobs that they love and making their lives better and making them wealthier, who's going to buy all the products and services that we're creating and we're building? So we can go start a company tomorrow, but we need to make sure the entire ecosystem of this transformation is nurtured and taken care of because it has to balance. And so in the beginning, I think I believed that the technology was most important because it was everyone's focus. But now, just prioritizing and put in validating the way people feel, I think is what I wished I would have started with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just quickly, because I know we're in the rapid fire, but to sum it up, I think, that EQ component is going to become more and more important. Like if you step back and a lot of what the IQ has been in the past is now going to be easy to be done by the LLM because it's
Yeah.
like, we used to have encyclopedias when we were young. Now we've got LLMs, right? It's all knowledge, but it's just quicker. It's, it's so much easier to use, but it's still reading people, right? It's
Hmm.
still all of those other human components, I think, are going to become more, well, they are going to become more important. It's not just me saying it, you're saying it, everyone saying it. So yeah,
Yeah.
And I think it's always an and. I can't think of a time where it'll be just the technology. I think it'll always be an and, human and technology. So I think you
Yeah.
bring a really good lens to that. So look, thanks a lot for coming on and sharing all of your learnings.
I do want to share
Yeah, go
one
for it.
thing real quick. Demis Hassabis was on a podcast, and was in December. It was the Google DeepMind podcast, which is
Yes,
a really great podcast to listen to. And he talks a lot about the future, because he's just such a visionary.
yes,
And he mentioned that information is something that computers will always be able to do more and more and more and more of. As you say, IQ, but intelligence or information gathering is always something, but human relatability, consciousness, and the empathy and the support and the caring, like these are not things that information, can do. They can learn from, but they can't do. And I think that's what's really important is we can feed them as much information to learn more and more and more and increase the intelligence, but they will never be able to touch a warm desk and say, "Oh, this feels so warm. Or, this makes me feel good," or
yeah.
anything like that. And that's that element that we'll always have uniquely to us.
Yeah, yeah, and sadly, we'll all remember the smartest person in our school wasn't always the person that's done the best in life, right? And I think it's a
Right.
little bit about that balance.
Yeah.
Just if you've got the answer, that's great, but someone's also got to hear
Yeah.
the answer. So yeah,
Hmm.
but look, Brian, really great having you on, and thanks for sharing today.
Loved this conversation. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
The consultants winning with AI aren't the ones who know everything technically. They're the ones who started playing and built systems that freed them to do what they love. Reach out to Angie Carel on LinkedIn and thank her and ask questions about her AI adoption. She is very willing to share. You can watch this episode on the Paul Higgins Mentoring YouTube channel. And if you are, great to have you here. And I will see you next time on the Paul Higgins podcast. What's your key takeaway from today? I'd love to hear. Want weekly insights on who to target and what to sell? Join my newsletter at paulhigginsmentoring.com/newsletter and share this with another tech consultant ready to escape the project grind.